Hello, everyone. The Godsaw here, and I'm back with a subject that I actually find quite interesting on the WWE area. It came out a couple of days ago, according to CNBC, that WWE is in talks with state regulators in Colorado and Michigan to legalize betting in high-profile matches. And that is something that's new in the United States area, and is a very interesting subject about like what would be going on. Now, it's not anything new in the terms of WWE side, that there's been gambling on matches. It's just always been in the international markets. Actually, there's really only one website that does it. It's betonline.ag. Um, and it's more of an international website that has always kind of allowed for betting on matches for WWE, or specifically on the pay-per-views. And they would basically set the lines based upon how the stories were going at the time. So if there's like a clear-cut winner, you would have a very massive spread to where, like, basically if the person who's expected to win just wins, you wouldn't really be getting much of a return out of it. If the storylines have been like show it to where it's like we actually have no idea who's going to win this, then it becomes a little bit more even to go along with it. So it's not like what you would typically see here stateside with what WWE and AEW have been doing with DraftKings. Those have always been free pools that you make other selections that aren't necessarily just predicting the winners of the matches. Like over there, you would be doing a who wins the match, but it's like how many tables will somebody go through, or will this item be used in the match? Will this person interfere? Well, and there's a lot of other things that go along with that. And there's also no actual though there is a prize pool that is money, there is no actual there's no actual person giving the money to enter into one of those pools. It's always a free pool that DraftKings is trying to bring people in to sign up for their accounts to go along with it. So this aspect would bring it to be a bit different, because now you would be able to bet on scripted matches if this were to go through. There's nothing saying that it would be able to go through. Looks like WWE is actually getting working with an accounting firm called Ernest and Young, basically to secure the matches months ahead of time. With and also with the aspect of these will not leak out. Now you can look at that one of two ways. One way is that that's good because they can do a more coherent story leading into the match itself, and then and then everything's kind of set ahead of time, and then they can kind of just create the story as it is. But you can also look at this as a bad thing, because not only do you have a an aspect where everything's kind of set in stone long ahead. Now, what happens if a little wrinkle happens, like, oh, this person is now becoming really popular, and we're actually going to change plans. You might not be able, the WWE might not be able to do that anymore. Someone gets injured inside of there as well, and you can't necessarily fully change the plans. And also, you'd have to take into the account of who's going to actually be knowing these results beforehand. Is it we've heard in the past, especially when Vince was more in charge, that people might not necessarily know the results of the matches until they actually go out there, in some cases, depending on how things change throughout the day. I don't necessarily know how much that change happens now around during the Triple H time of being in creative, but we definitely have known something like that. But also, how many people in creative are actually going to be knowing these results ahead of time? Because they're the ones creating the stories that are going to go out there, and based off of this, you would have to make it to where very few people know the actual results, and that could actually affect storylines down the line, especially if the results are done completely months ahead of time to go along with it. So there's a lot of things that could end up being bad with this. And I don't necessarily know if it's something that's. I know it's not out of the realm of betting on WWE matches based on the international market, but it would be interesting to see what it would be if they brought it stateside and all of a sudden it's like, oh, maybe only 2 or 3 people actually know what the result is. And then creative, and that could even take people who are in the creative process of the storyline, and they actually have no idea how this is going to end in any way, shape, or form. So I mean, if you want to go jokingly with this, it would be almost like it would be back with the Vince McMahon era in creative, especially over the last few years, where it's like he would rip up scripts late, or I won't say we know this for a fact, but it's reported that he would rip up scripts like hours before the show and rewrite the entire show just a couple of hours before it would go on the air. Um, and it could technically potentially go back to the well, I'm not to that in general, but they could be creating a story, but it won't fit the results of what the story that they could be telling, because like this has already been set months ahead of time. And it's definitely a very interesting aspect. And also, you would technically have to watch over the people as well who would be knowing these results, because they could technically place their own bets. I mean, we've seen it in we have seen things like that with referees in the past. We all many people know about what happened in the NBA with one of the referees and actually betting on games that he was reffing in to go along with it. I kind of know the aspect of betting on or I would know a little bit more personally, well, not personally, but like the area that I would live in, which was the Cincinnati area, about Pete Rose, and he was the manager of the Reds, and he was placing bets on baseball during that time frame as well. Everybody kind of knows how how that story went to go along with. So you would be watching over things like that as well in the WWE side with creative people or higher ups in the company. There's a lot of things that could go along with this, and it's an interesting aspect that I don't necessarily know how much I would end out liking it. I do enjoy doing the DraftKings stuff that gets released for every single pay-per-view that's either WWE or AEW. Those are a lot of fun because they kind of ask questions of things that you might not necessarily know that much about, and it's kind of out there. So it's not necessarily like, oh, I picked the winner of this match, this match, this match. It's like, no, you. I may mention to it before. It's like you may make a prediction who's going to win the match, but then you're going to also answer a bunch of questions about interferences. Just with AEW with Revolution, it was all based around the MJF Bryan Danielson Iron Man match. You're predicting how many falls there were going to be for each person. Was MJF going to use the Dynamite Diamond Ring? Was a match or was a fall going to end in disqualification? There was like different things with it. Now, if something like this were to actually take place in the United States, it looks like they're looking at 2 states that have legalized gambling already inside of there. It's if this were to take place, it would probably be much like what you would see on the international side, where they have betting already for it. It would probably only be for the pay-per-view matches and for like basically the pay-per-view matches, or maybe even in this case only the big matches. It won't necessarily be the entire card to go along with it. So like it's going to be an aspect of, do they go this route? I'm not sure. It's something that state regulators are going to really want to look into, even though you have things that people bet on, of course, like that are technically known ahead of time, such as the Academy Awards, the Emmys, the Oscars, things like that. There is technically betting on those in the United States. Though I think in Colorado, they technically do not allow for anything like that. So it would be interesting. So the likelihood of them getting into Colorado would be very unlikely. And also, they would technically have to go through each different state's particular ones as well. So like if they get regulation in one state, they won't necessarily mean they go to all states. Like they would have to go to each different state and be regulated inside of there. It could be an aspect of where one state allows for it and the dominoes just fall, and then the other states like, okay, after like watching over it for a bit, it's like, okay, this will be fine, this or this. Or they may just like, you know what, there's been a lot of times where match results have kind of gotten out beforehand. We don't like this, and they just don't, and they just nix it altogether. So it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening. I thought it was an interesting little subject and figured I would throw my 2 cents in there as well. If you feel like, if you're still watching the video at this time, if you feel, let me know how you end up feeling down in the comments below. Also, if you would like to, feel free to give a like, subscribe to the channel, and yeah, that's pretty much everything I have on this one. So with that being said, I hope everybody takes care, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a great rest of your day.